Every human alive today is the result of a childbirth that somehow survived. No hospitals, no painkillers, no surgeons, just darkness, pain, and the women standing beside you. For almost all of human history, giving birth was the single most dangerous moment in human life. And the death rates were something most people are completely unprepared to hear. So how exactly did ancient humans survive the one biological event that could kill both mother and child at the same time? To understand how ancient humans handled childbirth, you first need to understand why human childbirth is so uniquely dangerous in the first place. Most animals give birth without much drama. A cat delivers a litter in under an hour. A horse foal slides out and stands within minutes. Even chimpanzees, our closest relatives, give birth far more quickly and with far less risk than humans do. For humans, it is something else entirely. The reason comes down to one catastrophic collision between two things evolution gave us simultaneously. A brain that kept getting bigger and a body built to walk upright. Around 6 to 7 million years ago, our ancestors stood up. Walking on two legs freed the hands, saved energy, and allowed early humans to cover enormous distances. But it completely restructured the human pelvis. A pelvis built for efficient two-legged walking is narrow, bowl-shaped, and angled inward. It is a brilliant piece of engineering for movement. It is a terrible tunnel for a baby's head. At the same time, the human brain tripled in size over millions of years. That growing brain gave us language, tools, fire, and eventually cities. But a bigger brain means a bigger skull. And a bigger skull means a much harder exit. Anthropologists call this the obstetric dilemma. Two evolutionary advantages fighting each other inside the same body at the worst possible moment. And it gets worse. Human babies have to rotate mid-delivery. They enter the birth canal facing one direction, twist through the narrowest point, and exit facing the opposite direction from the mother. No other primate does this, and it means a human mother cannot reach down and guide her own baby out without risking injury to the child. This single mechanical fact changed everything. It meant human mothers could not do this alone. They never could. So what did it actually look like? Forget everything you have seen in movies. The woman lying flat on her back in a clean room. That image has almost nothing to do with how humans gave birth for the vast majority of our existence. Lying flat on your back during labor narrows the pelvis, works against gravity, and makes the entire process significantly harder. It became standard in modern medicine because it was convenient for the doctor, not because it was better for the mother. Ancient women knew something it took modern obstetrics centuries to rediscover. Gravity is your ally. Archaeological evidence and anthropological studies of isolated communities across the world point to the same thing. Ancient women gave birth upright, squatting, kneeling, gripping a rope suspended from a ceiling beam, or supported from behind by another woman. These positions opened the pelvis and used the body's natural mechanics. Some cultures had dedicated birth stools passed down through generations. In ancient Egypt, women gave birth on specially designed brick structures that allowed them to squat while being supported on both sides. These were not random choices. They were thousands of years of accumulated knowledge about how the human body actually works. Almost universally across ancient cultures, childbirth was the domain of women. Men were excluded not out of squeamishness, but because the laboring woman needed a specific kind of presence. Women who had given birth before. Women who knew what was coming. Women whose calm voices and experienced hands could mean the difference between life and death. Modern research has confirmed what ancient communities already knew. Continuous emotional and physical support during labor significantly reduces complications, shortens labor, and lowers the need for medical intervention. Ancient midwives did not have the clinical language for this, but they had the knowledge. Now for the part nobody talks about. The death rates were catastrophic. Researchers estimate that somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 3 women in prehistoric communities would die from childbirth-related causes at some point in their lives. Hemorrhage, infection, obstructed labor. Infant mortality was equally brutal. In ancient hunter-gatherer societies, between 25 and 40% of children did not survive their first year. These women knew the odds. They buried babies. They watched sisters die in labor, and they still did it. So given everything you just learned, the impossible pelvis, the rotating baby, the staggering death rates, how did ancient humans actually make it through it all? The answer is not what most people expect. It was not toughness. It was not luck. Ancient humans built an extraordinarily sophisticated system of knowledge, community, and biological instinct around childbirth that took thousands of years to develop and was so effective it kept our species alive long enough to eventually invent the medicine that replaced it. Start with the most important piece. Humans are one of the only animals on Earth that instinctively seeks help during labor. Almost every other species retreats. Cats hide, chimpanzees withdraw, but humans move toward other people. Researchers believe this instinct is not cultural, it is biological. Hardwired into us specifically because human birth is mechanically complicated enough that a second pair of hands is not a luxury. It is a survival requirement. This is called cooperative birth, and it may be one of the oldest human behaviors in existence. The midwife is not a modern invention. She is one of the oldest professional roles in human history, and she came armed with knowledge that was genuinely remarkable. Ancient midwives understood pressure. They knew which points on the lower back, when pressed firmly during a contraction, could reduce pain significantly. They knew how to reposition a baby presenting incorrectly by manipulating the mother's body from the outside. They knew the difference between labor progressing normally and labor that had stalled dangerously. They knew how to manage hemorrhage with direct pressure and specific plant-based treatments. They knew how to stimulate a baby that was not breathing at birth. This knowledge was not written down. It lived in hands and voices and memory passed from woman to woman across generations. And then there were the plants. Ancient herbal medicine for childbirth was far more sophisticated than most people realize. Blue cohosh and black cohosh, used by Native American communities for centuries, contain compounds that stimulate uterine contractions. Modern pharmacology has confirmed they are biologically active. Raspberry leaf, used across dozens of ancient cultures, contains fragrine, a compound that tones the uterine muscle. And then there was ergot, a fungus that grows on rye, used in ancient Europe to manage hemorrhage after birth. The active compound in ergot, ergotamine, is still used in modern obstetrics today in purified pharmaceutical form. These were not accidental discoveries. They were the result of thousands of years of careful observation and the urgent motivation of keeping mothers alive. The knowledge went even deeper. Ancient midwives understood warmth. They understood hydration. They understood that fear slows labor. Modern obstetric science calls this the fear-tension-pain cycle. When a woman is frightened, her body releases stress hormones that tighten muscles, which increases pain, which increases fear, which tightens the muscles further. Ancient midwives had no name for this cycle, but they understood it intuitively, which is why they talked to laboring women constantly. Calm voices, steady presence, reassuring words, not because it was kind, because it worked. And perhaps the most remarkable evidence of all is the simplest. The Neanderthals, our closest extinct relatives, show strong evidence of community care. Individuals with severe injuries survived for years after those injuries, which means others were feeding them, protecting them, keeping them alive. The cooperative instinct that made human birth survivable appears to predate our own species entirely. We did not invent community care. We inherited it. So ancient humans had midwives. They had herbal medicine. They had cooperative birth and thousands of years of accumulated body knowledge. But there was one more layer, one that modern science dismissed for a long time as superstition and is only now beginning to take seriously. Every single ancient culture on Earth wrapped childbirth in ritual. Not some of them, every single one, from prehistoric Europe to ancient Mesopotamia to the forests of pre-colonial Americas. Wherever humans lived and gave birth, they surrounded that moment with ceremony, chanting, prayer, and specific people whose entire role was to manage the atmosphere of the room. Modern scholars assumed this was simply fear dressed as religion. Primitive people inventing gods to explain what they could not control. That interpretation misses everything. Here is what was actually happening inside the laboring woman's brain during those ceremonies. When she is surrounded by familiar voices performing familiar rituals, her nervous system reads the environment as safe. Cortisol and adrenaline drop. Oxytocin rises. A hormone that drives bonding, trust, and uterine contractions. Ritual was not separate from the biology of birth. Ritual was directly driving it. In ancient Mesopotamia, midwives recited specific incantations during labor. Each verse corresponded to a sequential stage of the birth process. Researchers believe these incantations functioned as a practical checklist disguised as prayer, a medical protocol hidden inside a religious ceremony. In cultures across sub-Saharan Africa, rhythmic group singing during labor was standard practice, not background music. Every woman in the birth room participated. Rhythmic sound synchronizes breathing, regulates heart rate, and creates what neurologists call entrainment, where the brain aligns its own rhythms with the external sound pattern. A laboring woman surrounded by rhythmic singing was having her nervous system regulated in real time by the people around her. They did not know the neuroscience. They knew the outcome. And almost every ancient birth ritual included one more thing. A story told to the laboring woman about what her body was doing. Not a story of suffering, a story of power. You are not dying. You are crossing a threshold. You are doing what every woman before you has done and survived. Modern pain research has confirmed that the meaning a person assigns to pain directly affects how intensely they experience it. Ancient midwives were changing the neurological experience of pain in real time through nothing but words and presence. None of this knowledge was ever written down. It lived in the memories of women. In songs, in ceremonies, in hands. It survived ice ages. It survived the collapse of civilizations because it worked. If this made you think about something differently, The like button is right there, and it genuinely helps this channel reach people who would never search for something like this. And if you want more videos that dig into the parts of human history nobody talks about, subscribe. There is a lot more where this came from.